Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here, just after 11 o'clock on December 19th, 2013. Well, it's Eastern time, of course, or as I'm trying to encourage people to do, that would be 11 plus 5 equals 16. That would be 1605 Zulu time. I'll get it right at some point. Now, you might be wondering why I have this fine crown upon my head. Well, it turns out that December 19th is the birthday of my grandson, Carter, who turns 5 today, and it is also the birthday of my sister, which would be his great aunt, who turns 70 today. Who would have thought? Nonetheless, these things do happen. Allow me to sing happy birthday to my grandson. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Carter. Happy birthday to you. And I will now sing happy birthday to my sister. Happy birthday to Hallie. Happy birthday to Hallie. Happy birthday, dear Hallie. Happy birthday to you. All right. That concludes that part of the festivities. Allow me to get this off. You notice it's a bit small. Now, this surprised me because at 2 years old, the human head has reached 90% of its adult size. And so this was designed for a 5-year-old. Well, it was designed for a plethora of kids of, say, ages 3 to 12. But this is very small. So what this indicates is that despite the fact I probably had a fairly big head at the age of 5, I've gotten an even bigger head over the years as time has gone by. And those people who know me will attest to that fact. We've been sitting here watching the news conference that NASA's giving for these upcoming spacewalks here on Saturday and Monday and Wednesday, and maybe Friday. That'll be next Friday.
27?
Well, they take it, every other day, to fix this ammonia valve, cooling valve conundrum that they've got. And also they've been talking about this snorkel they're putting in the spacesuits in case the thing turns into a giant flying aquarium and the guy has to breathe underwater. Well, we'll see how that goes here next week, won't we? So anyway, the reason for this crown, the reason for this stage prop, which I fetched up out of the basement this morning, planning for this, is that when I was 5, on my fifth birthday, my mother and the woman who helped take care of my grandmother, my grandmother had a fairly serious stroke, but she could be left alone for, several hours at a time. This woman who went down with us, we called her Aunt Lil. Her name was Lil Ellen Cheney, and she's long since dead. Long since dead. As is my grandmother, who died in 1964. My grandmother had a serious, fairly big time stroke. We're talking like sit here in the chair, sort of like this kind of stroke. She knew what she wanted to say, but couldn't talk. It had to be very frustrating for her, in addition to just not being able to really move around much. Anyway, so my mother and her sisters largely her oldest sister, whose husband had a fair amount of money, hired Lil and Cheney to take care of my grandmother, and she lived with her for, gosh, almost 8 or 9 years, and she became, we called her Aunt Lil, as I said, and so we drove over to Blanchester on the morning of my birthday and picked up Aunt Lil, and then we went down to Cincinnati, and what we did is we went to the Channel 12, I can't remember its call sign, and I think it's probably changed since then. Channel 10 or Channel 12 television studios, where we were, or I was, well, everybody was basically, to take part in one of these live locally produced television shows, which at that time were very common. And some of them were syndicated to neighboring towns, like Ruth Lyon. She was in Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus, Indianapolis. And others were, just in one city. And the name of this television show was called The Skipper Ryle Show. The host's name was Glenn Skipper Ryle, and the conceit was that this guy was a riverboat captain, and it being Cincinnati, and he had one of these little captain's hats on, and he had one of these bushy mustaches, like sort of in the style of Chris Hadfield, the Canadian astronaut. Actually, kind of looked a lot like him, except without Chris Hadfield didn't have the big red bulbous alcoholic nose, and same sort of build, same sort of features. In retrospect, this guy was probably, I don't know, but now that given my medical background, I think it's probably safe to say this guy was pretty much a major league alcoholic. Alcoholic, like the guy that basically wakes up and has, reaches for the liquor bottle, doesn't matter what kind of liquor, just a liquor bottle. And then he might have a bite of food later in the day, and when I say a bite of food, I mean a bite of food. And this is very much sort of like the style of the Captain Kangaroo, but with without quite the whimsical overtones. He had a sidekick, and instead of a fairly thin guy named Mr. Green Jeans, who was in contrast to the Captain Kangaroo, he was a fairly big guy, and Mr. Green Jeans was thin. Here Skipper Ryle was thin, and he had a kind of a fairly overweight individual who was his sidekick, and you could tell that there was a lot of latent hostility between the two of them. Nonetheless, kids found this very entertaining, and it was all very clean. It wasn't like you had, some 7-year-old girl coming out twerking, or some sort of thing that might be going on nowadays. I suppose if you have one of these shows, some tweeny bopper, to titillate the 7-year-old boys. So what you did was you went down and you sat on the studio audience, which like stage, like gymnasium risers, and if you had a birthday that day, then Skipper Ryle would call you down, and you'd go scampering down out of the bleachers, and you'd get a little crown, and you had sort of like this lineup. It was like a giant police lineup of 5 to 12-year-old kids, with their crowns on, and then people would sing happy birthday, and you'd get a slice of cake. stuff like that. And of course, it's all great fun. I mean, it's it's a nice outing for the day and something to remember. In fact, I mean, hell, I've hung on to this thing for 57 years. Who knew? Who knew? So, so that was fun. Let's see. Okay. Well, you can see Paul's spending his vacation interneting, as that sort of seems to have dominated life around here. Again, like I say, since the dog died. Here we are, looking through our back door. Guess we're waiting on this 2 to 4 inches of rain that's supposed to be rolling in here starting tomorrow afternoon and through Saturday and into Sunday. This reminds me of the first time we had water in the basement, which was several years ago now. I'd have to go look on I've got that written down in my orifice in there, but what happened was we'd actually had a fairly cold December, not as cold as we've had this December. Excuse me. But the ground, cold enough to get the ground frozen, and we had a little bit of snow on the ground, but essentially it was frozen ground. And then over 2.5 day, 3 day period, we got a little over 4.5 inches of rain, and meanwhile it significantly warmed up, and then the water came into the basement. It came up through the cracked concrete in the floor. Excuse me. And I acquired a pump from Northern Hydraulics and was able to pump the thing out, had a garden hose. It was a submersible pump, and you put it down in the water, and then had a garden hose, ran up the stairs and out the garage, and pumped it out down the driveway. I've had to use that I think 5 times since. Some years a couple times, other years not at all. Well, I think there was 1 year where there was one time. Most often it happens when it happened, other than in late December like that first time, it's been in February or March. For basically the same kind of phenomenon. So I'm hoping we don't have to deal with that again here in the next few days. Or if we do, I sincerely hope the motor in the new washing machine is above the level of the water. Because it generally only gets up, the deepest it's been is about 2.5 inches. And if you calculate, well, I could run through the calculations for you, but this thing pumps, in theory, this thing pumps about 20 to 30 gallons a second, depending on, not a second, a minute, depending on, how high it has to go up. I mean, it has a maximum rise of 22 feet on it. And, I can pump the thing down to 1/4 of an inch, which is its effective depth. It won't pump lower than 1/4 of an inch. Say if you've got an inch, I've pumped it down to 1/4 of an inch in my basement, which is, would be a, it's about an 1,100 square foot basement. I think I've got one of those Malaysian shield bugs crawling up my leg here. I may have killed it. It seems to be clinging on for dear life in my pant leg.
It's between your feet.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
Where? Oh,
right
there it is. Oh, I got
Belly
it.
up.
Oh, I got it. Good. You know, belly up. There we go. All right. I lost my train of thought. Oh no! Well, so no, it'd pump that thing down from about an inch to a quarter of an inch in about just under 3 hours. So that gives you an idea of how good it is. Well, anyway, I hope I don't have to use it, but I've got it all squared away to go if we have to. So there we are. And right now, Paul's doing a load of wash. He's about ready to go down and check on it again. And
oh, the water's off. It's in the dryer.
oh, okay. The water's off and it's in the dryer, so no problem.
Turn everything to the right.
I don't. Okay. Oh, whoa. Right, well, that's water's off. It's in the dryer. So there you go. So we're sort of, looking. Well, we're not looking forward to that, but we're ready for that. And I think in essence, that's about, that's sort of the high points of our lives here today. And so I'm going to say bye-bye now, YouTubers. Here you can look at my Living Earth HD here. I do like Living Earth HD. Get Living Earth HD, guys. Radiant Labs, it's great. There's no monetary endorsement involved in this statement. Okay.